everybody. Welcome to another webinar here at Route Consultant. For those of you who are here for the first time, who've never seen us or interacted with us, my name is Josh Gregory. I am the Vice President of Education here at Route Consultant. And all that should mean to you, if you've never interacted with us before, is that I spend a lot of time researching this space and figuring out the best things to bring to you if you're trying to enter for the first time and you're trying to understand this logistics industry. Or if you're already in the space, we spend a lot of time over here trying to find the best ways to help all of you be as successful as you can with all of the various challenges that are introduced from our partners like FedEx and Amazon, and also just the macro economy as a whole. So before we go too much longer, though, I do have a quick disclaimer to read, as I do every week. So Route Consultant is not endorsed by and is not recommended by Federal Express Corporation, FedEx Ground, or Amazon. Route Consultant is not sponsored by, is not approved by, is not associated with, and has no connection whatsoever with Federal Express Corporation, FedEx Ground, or Amazon. Now, for everyone who's here every week, who comes to these every week, welcome back. And whether you're brand new here and this is your first time, or you come every week, we do always want this to continue to be a place where you can come together, learn, and ask whatever questions you have. And we're definitely going to have some time at the end for questions today for anyone who has any. The way general flow, I'm going to go through some updates on the listings and some admin updates, and then I'm going to go over a couple of things that I wanted to go over this week from a content perspective, but I will be on here at the end to answer whatever questions anyone has. And so it could be something I talk about today, or it could be about the industry as a whole. Anything that you all have questions on, I'm here to answer. And we'll be here as long as you all have questions, because I want to make sure that we get those addressed every week. So quickly, in terms of new listings that have come out this week, we only have one on the P&D side. So it's in Central Texas, and it is 8 routes with a manager and 8 trucks at $399,000, and has low stem miles and a full-time manager. And I'm going to go over that's the main one on the P&D side. Again, small one in Texas, but really a good opportunity if you're looking to get in on the small one. We do have another announcement. I'll come back to that from a listing perspective at the end, though. So quickly, before we get into the rest of the listings and some of the admin things, for the content for today. So for those of you who couldn't make it or hadn't heard yet, we did host our giant contractor expo this past weekend in Dallas, Texas. And I always love the opportunity to go to those, to meet everybody in person, answer questions, and really just get to talk and engage with all of you in the community about really what the future of this industry can and should be. And with that, we also have some really important sessions addressing some of those challenges and some of the future opportunities in the space. Now, if you went to the expo, we do record all of those, but you do have to attend the expo to actually get those recordings, and we'll send those out in the next couple of days. But I know not everybody will be able to attend, so you won't get to see those full sessions. So what I want to do today is to have Dave and Amy Byers on to go over through at least some of their sessions, which, if you were there, were some of the most impactful sessions at the expo. And we're not going to go through all of those sessions out loud. This is not a 4-hour webinar where we're able to talk through all of that. But I did want them to kind of come on, give some key takeaways from those sessions, and give everybody on today and whoever's watching on YouTube just the opportunity to learn and hear some of what the expo was about this year. And then if you're here live, to get to ask some of those questions, even if you didn't get to attend. So Dave and Amy, I see you on there. If you want to come on and say hi, and then we'll get started.
Hey,
Hi,
Josh.
everybody.
Hi, everybody.
I'm Amy Byers, CEO of Slicker Trucking.
And I'm Dave Byers, President and CEO of Slicker Trucking.
Perfect. So before we start talking sessions, just generally, the expo is in Dallas. It was a new spot. What was kind of your favorite part this past year?
Wow. So this year was interesting for us because every year in the past, we had just been attendees, and we had the luxury of kind of coming and going and picking the sessions that we wanted. I think for Dave and I, at least for me, I think it was interesting to be in the seat of the expert position. It was very humbling for Dave and I both. We started one truck, one guy, and have built what we've built today. And I think the big common thread through the whole thing is that, even though we're, over 200 people and 180 trucks, and we run all kinds of different operations with the FedEx Ground, the line haul and the custom critical, that we are not immune to the 10-person, contract, small terminal problems and challenges that everybody faces. So I think it came from a very genuine place for us to share our story, and that we're not immune to those challenges. And, we had 2 call-offs this morning and a manager's in a truck already, and we're doing that right alongside of everybody. But I think for Dave and I to kind of humble ourselves in a position to be recognized as experts and to share our knowledge and to get, the acceptance from the community and the questions. Oh my gosh, Josh, just getting from one place to another after our sessions, it was definitely, it was fun to hear that people had the same questions that we had 10 years ago and still have, and still discuss with our executive committee and our executive team and our managers every day. These are everyday, FedEx moves the carrot, they change the rules of the game. So we're learning every single day alongside of you. So it's just fantastic for us to share this kind of information. I think that was kind of the big nugget that we took away this year.
Yeah. Dave, anything different from you, or was it kind of a similar experience?
Yeah, well, real similar, but I also like when people say like, hey, why do you do this? Or why do you do that? Or have you tried this? Or does this work? Like it's a great central location for us to meet with other contractors and get their ideas and give them some of our ideas. And we don't have all the answers. So we're there to get as much information as possible as well, to make some kind of new strategic planning in our business. So even though we were there to kind of help other people, we got a ton of help ourselves too. And we've been spending, we've kind of disconnected a couple of days since the conference and took some days just for ourselves. But when FedEx is kind of, it's our life, it's our livelihood, it's what we do. We spent a lot of time this week talking about fleet strategy and the business that we run day to day, and kind of how we can advance to the next level to be better contractors ourselves.
Yeah. And I think that's ultimately what it's all about. We want you there. We want you speaking because you have a really great perspective, tons of experience, and you can provide that knowledge and that background for everybody. But at the end of the day, this is the problem we're dealing with. We all have the same problems, and as many different angles and perspectives and tools that we can bring to the table, the more successful we'll all be. And that's the name of the game here.
That is the name of the game.
Yeah. So, yeah, you go ahead.
I said, I think that was a common thread that Dave hammered through a lot of the different conversations that we had, is when people say like, why do you do this? Why did you partner with Route Consultant? Why did you become the experts? And I think the hit home level is that Chewy or Walmart or whatever that shipper is in Wisconsin or California or Texas or New England is the same one that holds the contract as the one in Ohio. So for us, that's our livelihood. So if we don't share our information and strengthen our network as one unit, we could all lose our volume one way or another if we're not servicing the contracts the right way, but also maintaining a way for us all to be profitable and not hurt and not lose to service the contract. So I think that was, a common thread that was definitely, to your point, we're all better together.
Yeah, 100%. Perfect. So, as I kind of teed up, you guys had 4 amazing sessions at the Expo this year. I'm not going to have you give your presentations because, like I said, like you alluded to, Amy, I feel like half of my job at Expo this past year was trying to make sure you all got water and food and survived, because you were doing 2-hour Q&A sessions at the end of all these segments. It felt like so. We will have time for some questions today, but I want to make sure that we just kind of give a taste of what you guys talked about. So the first one is, why is silver the new gold? So just give us kind of a feeling of what you guys were trying to point to and get at in that session.
So I think this one specifically wasn't even focused on FedEx so much as just good general business practice that whatever customer you're serving or what industry you're serving, make sure you're hitting those marks, make sure you're hitting your contractual obligations. But as a business owner, as an independent contractor, you have the rights to run your business the way that you see fit. So from a safety standpoint, so to not let those two things contradict each other, where you're running so far into the contract and you're managing so far into hitting certain targets that you're losing sight of culture and safety and service and things like that. You're not robbing one to make sure you hit the marks in another, but to truly lean into FedEx's holistic approach with these metals, and really run your business holistically, which means making sure that every piece of your business is successful, but then to take it one step further than maybe FedEx or your current customer, and to say, you have to layer in the pieces of the business that matter to you. So for Dave and I, it's not just service, safety, productivity, and customer service. It's our culture, and it's our, benefits, and making sure that our employees are taken care of. And it's, safety at a different level, safety of their human, not just safety in the trucks, but safety as a human, as a people. So I think those were huge to get that message out, that the holistic approach makes sense. Maybe be a little bit disconnected as to how FedEx grades us, but there's a way to kind of navigate what makes sense for you. What do you have to add?
And from a simplicity standpoint, it's okay to be silver in the FedEx world. Like, we all want to be gold. The Olympics are on right now. You want to be the gold medal. You want to be the best. But in the FedEx world, it's okay to be silver. And just because you're silver doesn't mean you're second place. You can still be first place and be in silver.
We actually had a couple really good takeaways of that, is that we had said, like, from a financial standpoint, we find that when we are silver, trending silver, our finances are in check, our people are happy, our accidents are down, and we are really good. Because remember, when you're gold, the outcome of that is next month, right? The repercussions of you being gold is next month. So gold trending bronze is no bueno, as we say in Texas. So that's no good. So we say that if you're silver trending silver is kind of where our sweet spot is from a financial standpoint, all these things. And in a lot of our after sessions, people had said, well, you guys have, FedEx ear, and sometimes you talk to them. Do you think they're going to move the needle so that we can be gold? And I said, I think you missed them. I think you missed my memo. The memo says it's okay to be silver. So I think that was really enriching for us to hear that people are still in that place where we were, where they were still like, yeah, but if FedEx could just realize that gold was unattainable, maybe they would make silver the new gold. And I'm like, no, that's not what we meant when we said silver is the new gold. Yeah. We meant that for us, we had to temper our expectations and create our own level of success and create our own metrics and our own expectations, that as long as we were servicing the customer at all of those marks, that silver was exactly where we needed to be. And for once in Slicker history, it was okay for us to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's one of the most important messages when you're thinking about FedEx and handling these systems is, one, I think when it comes to gold, there's not a lot of clear advantages of being gold. And so I think that's one of the biggest things, is that it's a pride and a pride in your business and wanting
the mindset. Yeah, for
exactly.
sure.
But it's not really, there's not a lot of benefits, and there are a lot of potential costs, because I think one of the things you guys really realize pointing out in your session, not just are you financially better in silver, but sometimes achieving gold is almost impossible to do so and stay there for any amount of time, because of the things you almost have to sacrifice to get into that gold category and stay there. And so I love that session. I've, for those who got to attend it, and for those who will have the recording, I think it's a really important operational thing to be not just thinking through, how do I change the benchmarks in my business, but also how do I change the mindset for my business to be successful?
Yeah. And your managers, like I said in the sessions, the managers were the ones that were suffering the most, because they felt that, right? Like, our managers felt that weight of not being first place, right? It's that whole, what is that movie? Ricky Bobby, whatever,
Not
Talladega Nights, right?
Vegas,
If you're second, you're last. If you're not first, you're last. But we really did have to change the mindset so that we could get to a place where silver, trending silver was really the best for our operation. And I think today, measuring those on financial basis, a lot of the conversations that we hear on Facebook and many is, I can't afford to do business like this. Well, afford to do business the way you can. Meet your contractual obligations and figure out a way that you can manage that within your own business. You're the business owner. I think we lose sight of that sometimes.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. So let's jump to the next one. So people pains is the one I was going to go to next. So
Okay.
that was one that you did with Melody on our team, but just kind of give us a feel for what you were shooting for and what you were kind of pointing to in that session.
Yeah, so that one, People Pains, was really focused on kind of the shift in what we deal with at Slicker, which we wanted to share with people. A lot of what we manage every day is not boxes, it's not trucks, it's not maintenance, it's not the back and forth that kind of used to bog us down. I would say that we're all really good at what we do for FedEx. My managers know what to do, the drivers know what to do, but a lot of what gets in the way today are people problems and not the things like the call-offs, the, personal emergencies, whether it's, personal problems or daycare or whatever that is, not being able to afford life, the cost of living, all these things that come into our drivers' lives that they bring to work with them. And then that makes them a less safe driver, a more distracted driver, maybe a problem because they're really complaining about something at work, but it's not really work, it's home. That's really the root cause. So to get to that and to understand when people become a problem, that they may be toxic for your culture and your business. One of the big things that we had heard was, well, I can't afford to do that because I just need a body and a seat right now because my contract is struggling. And that really did, it kind of hurt, it kind of hit home for us because there are times that you have to hire to cover the service. You can't just say, well, you're a bad egg, so I'm going to let 40 stops or 100 stops sit. That's just not an option that FedEx gives us. So I would like to dive in even a little bit deeper from that session and say, how do you manage both? How do you service the contract, but continue to build maybe a better structure or a better foundation so that when that person does move themselves out, the next person you hire adds to the good, right? So if you have this balance of good and bad, but still servicing the contract. And we did understand, and we've been in a position where we've taken someone that we knew maybe wasn't the best fit for the business, but they were going to get stops done safely. So it was kind of the best move at the time. So again, not immune to that, but I would like to expound on kind of in cadence, servicing the contract, but then also building towards a better culture and a better people business. So that was kind of the takeaway of that. But some of the comments that we got after was, well, it didn't really apply because I just have to get my stops done and it doesn't matter if my people are good people. But I think there's a happy medium to get yourself to a place, because I don't think what people fundamentally realize is the cost that it is to hire a new person. So you put that one person, right? You put that body in the seat, but then don't realize that you've hired that person tenfold. And then now you're at $50,000 of exposure and you didn't really look at it because it's just $5,000 this month or $2,000 this month. And you didn't really gauge kind of overall what that cost looks like to not operate your business on a better platform where you're holding people accountable. You're just kind of tolerating the everyday, and the cost to do business that way is very expensive.
Yeah. I think you can end up in that survival mindset where you can't think about the future. You're just trying to solve today. But I think I think it would be really impactful. We could do it on a webinar or some other format, but thinking through what are the small steps that I can do to build a, better foundation and better culture for the future while I'm surviving. Because at the end of 90% of your day may be survival, but if you can even take, 10%, like one step in the right direction each day, each month, then you're going to be in a much better spot than if you're just surviving and then you just find out where you are a year from there and you're in the same place you were then.
Yeah, a little tip that we give to our management teams is, sometimes, and again, not immune, right? Our managers end up in trucks, whether we had a walkout or a call off, or I mean, we even had mass exodus where 2 or 3 people leave at the same time. So we've been into it, we've been up against it. But I say, if I'm going to have my GM or one of my senior managers, which were some of the guys that you guys met at Expo, if I'm going to have that level of employee in a truck delivering, right? Or if Dave had to be in a position, we haven't been in that position in a long time, but if Dave had to deliver, can we move the ball forward? Right. So if Rusty or any of my senior managers are going to be in a truck, what does that look like? So put a trainee with that person, right? Double down on the efforts. So you get culture like literally injected into that new person and you get the best training ever. So I say, like, if one of those guys are going to be in a truck, are we moving the ball forward? Are we, getting to the goal line, or are we just, delivering boxes? So that's some of the things that we do today. If I have to have a guy in a truck, I'm like, okay, who's with you then? Right? Do we have a new person that can shadow you or can jump for you so they can learn culture and just company, company organization and kind of our philosophy on service, or one little takeaway that they could get to move the ball forward to make that person a better person and a better driver for us, to double down. So that's kind of the cadence that I was talking about, is we're still servicing packages and we're still in emergency mode, right? But we're also focused on making the best of that situation.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's all kinds of things we could talk about from that, and
Yeah.
we will have
It's a whole session.
yeah.
Right.
Okay, so let's go to the third one, which is Express. And this is one where I think we probably could have answered questions on for the entire convention. But just talk a little bit about kind of what you guys were highlighting in this session when it comes to the Express integration.
I think one of the main things we wanted to talk about with Express was that even though there's a lot of talk about how tough it is, that it is doable, and that we are working through any issues that we see with the Express integration. And there's hiccups and there's headaches and there's problems and there's issues, but at the end of the day, we're working through them all. And we're kind of working through them now so that when it does a whole network rollout, those problems will be few and far between. So we wanted to kind of talk about that and not scare people, because Express is a scary word. It's been like that for us for probably a year and a half now, and it doesn't have to be. So when Amy and I talked about topics and this came up, we knew it would be the perfect time to be able to talk about kind of the ups and the downs, and how we got through it, and what to look forward to, and that it's not end of the world type situation.
Yeah, I think Josh, as you mentioned, and you and I kind of tag teamed on this at the convention, which was just that, your mindset is a huge impact on your success in the Express world, and going into it and saying, oh, this is just one more thing that FedEx is asking us to do, and they're just moving the goalpost a little bit further, and that carrot, and they're giving us all these restrictions and all these expectations, but to, again, manage your business within the way that you want to, for how safe you can do it, and then take all that data and sit down and have a really fair and respectful conversation with your only customer, FedEx Ground, FedEx Express. So to make sure that that's communicated in the right way, and to not just kind of dig your heels in and huff and puff and say, here we go again, because we have found success in it. It hasn't been easy, but we are trying to have the conversations, because they have to get it right. Right? Like, FedEx has to figure this out. They have to figure out how to make this work for everyone, because it's not going away. And I think you even said, and in your portion of that Express session is, hey guys, it's here. So complaining about it isn't going to make it go away. They're just going to find somebody else to do it. So, lean in and listen, and, but to be fair, that the costs to operate are different, and we're not ignoring that. We're not saying, it's all kumbaya and fun. But we do have the data, and we try to have the most respectful conversation that we can with FedEx when we do.
Yeah, there's definitely things to figure out, and there's plenty more to figure out. But I think you all are a testament that there are solutions. Your revenue can grow, and you can also grow your margins, or at least maintain your margins with this new revenue as you figure out this new express model. The exactly what you said, FedEx doesn't have a choice here. This is the path that this giant ship is on, and they've set this as their direction, and it's really critical for the future of FedEx to compete in the marketplace against people like UPS to nail this, and they need this to be the future of FedEx, and so it's coming. I wouldn't say that they have a perfect plan for how to get there, but that's where the contractor and the entrepreneur community has to come together and find these solutions together. And I think everything you guys talked about, the things that you've done in your own business and the things that you're continuing to fight for in the future to help make this a model that works for everyone, were amazing to hear. And we see all different kinds of models, and this is going to be a model that will continue to evolve as this
Yes.
can change and rolls out. But this is the future, and I think that's the mindset. Is there's going to be stuff that sucks, and there's going to be stuff that can be a win for us as a community, but we all have to work and try to just pull in the same direction if we want to get there with our partner, our only customer, like you said, in FedEx.
I think the big thing is also just that mindset. If you can focus that your mindset, that it's going to be fluid, right? Like, be flexible, be okay with change, know that, we talked about, we launched on October 28th, and October 25th, we were still changing. We were still getting changes thrown at us. And we were flexible and fluid, and we were able to overcome. But if we would have just said, well, hey, this is what you said to us 3 days ago, and we're not changing, things would have been really uncomfortable for us financially, and contractually. So, that ability to just but you really do have to change your mindset that it is fluid right now. It's changing and it's evolving, hopefully for the better, but it's going to get a little sticky and might be a little uncomfortable at times.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So let's go to your last section, which is, we're launching a lot of new silos, and I have an announcement on that a little bit later for those who weren't at the expo. But this session was kind of, how did you all learn to diversify within FedEx and add your own silos? How, what did diversification and look like for you? What does it continue to look like for you all in your journey?
This session was probably my favorite. We kind of get to talk about all the things that we've done and how creative we've gotten over the years to grow our business in FedEx and out of FedEx. So we covered everything from our 2 maintenance shops that we've done, and we only work on our in-house trucks, to our diesel shop. It runs just our own diesel, to our office that we built to get out of our kitchen, to stop working at our kitchen table 24 hours a day, to our other businesses we have, which are rental properties, and we own some pizza shops and some Shave Ice franchises. And it just really we just really wanted to open the eyes, like, hey, you can reach out and stay in the market and do these small things that'll help you. And it helps you, like Spencer said, pivot. You have an opportunity to pivot. And we have a tow truck now too, that we are only towing our own equipment.
Yeah.
So but if anything ever happened, we can pivot. We can go public with our tow truck. We can go public with our shops, and we can pivot. And we have an office. If push came to shove, we could sell our office, right?
Or we could do more consulting or coaching or whatever that looks like.
It gives us options that we're not all in. And even something as small as us going from P&D to line haul to custom critical, we have different lines of business that we've expanded into, still in the trucking industry and still working with FedEx, but just in different aspects of the FedEx world that we can be successful in.
Yeah. So we were talking to a gentleman that, was buying, he was a new investor looking to buy, and he had been in a different business and diversified into FedEx, and then has an opportunity now. He's only been in 3 or 4 months. They want him to run contingency and potentially has growth. And I said, okay, so now you can take that purchase price and cut it in half, right? So now it doesn't seem so sticky to have that purchase, that first right of purchase, right? Because that organic growth is there. And he was like, oh my gosh, absolutely. And it was so nice for him to see kind of how Dave and I grew. you know, because it was just one P&D contract and then another P&D contract and then one FedEx line haul route and then another one and then 8 more. And then, you know, now we're up to 40 line haul trucks and we're in 4 different terminals. And again, different size contracts from the 10 P&D contract to the 35 P&D contract. But I think it was a really cool way to share our story and to let people know that we haven't stopped. I mean, just October of last year, it's not even been 1 year since we did custom critical, and we're looking to grow that by the end of this year by 2 more trucks. So we're still up against it and we're still looking to, you know, to find those little niches, to take that expertise. And I know, like, even with the flowers, we were very excited to hear some of the opportunities that Route Consultant brought, because we have, as contractors at FedEx, a very strict, very highly compliant, highly auditable, right? Like, just very, very strict trucking knowledge and operating practices that all of us are currently doing. And if we can take just that knowledge and leverage it in another industry, and not that FedEx is bad, and I wouldn't want to get out of FedEx altogether, but to just move some of that revenue to another stream. And like I said, we all have this, you know, and many of us have done, and this is one of the things that I kind of hit on early on. If you were home delivery years ago and you went to ground, you're diversified, right? You went from home delivery to ground. If you went from ground to express, you're diversified, whether you think you are or not. And that was very little things that have changed the game in the business that you're in. It may not seem that because it's just still one contract, but you did change your mindset to diversify. So if you can take that and capitalize elsewhere, you have the makings for it. And I think because we're coming from such a strict operating environment, some of these other logistics operations are going to be like super streamlined and easy for people to jump into and safe, right?
Yeah.
And safe.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the line haul too, because, you know, we always talk about you guys as the P&D experts and how large you have, but 41 trucks is a big line haul operation.
It is it's a big operation.
Yeah,
It
so I want
definitely
people to know that too. You guys have that expertise and knowledge as well.
Yeah, and we definitely, you know, we're even diversified within line haul, right? So we're a local line haul. We don't go over the road, but we do a ton of city work, which is kind of that spot work that people talk about. And there are opinions all over the gamut. Nationwide, we talk to guys that are like, we don't do that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like 64% of our revenue, ours, and we have 20 contracts. And, you know, that P&D work is really for us where the money is. And we found that we actually pay the most. We found that our pay model is higher than a lot of people's. And they're like, how can you take so much revenue from that piece if you're actually paying more than I do? And I'm like, I'd love to share. But I think that was some of the conversations that came up that were really exciting for us, is how we can learn from other contractors and how we can share what's worked for us.
Perfect. Well, you know, I think we kind of ran through all 4 of those there. And like I said, if you got to go to the Expo, amazing. You're going to get to see those full sessions in just a couple of days. But if you didn't, at least hopefully you got a taste of some of the things that we talked about and some of the ideas that are going around the industry. And if you have questions, I'll get to the Q&A in just a second. Feel free to type them in the Q&A box at the bottom, anything for Dave and Amy, and we'll go through it. Quickly, I'm going to go over a couple of admin things and one announcement, and then we will open it up for Q&A. So from an events perspective, you know, our big one was this past weekend, but we do still have more events coming up this year. Our next happy hour is actually in Denver on September 10th. So if you're looking for us on the west side of the country, we'll be out in Denver in about a month. And then the next new investor summit. So if you're new and trying to find out more about the industry, our next one is on September 27th in our office in Nashville. Other than that, you know, I mentioned earlier we had one P&D listing that came live this week, and it's out of Central Texas. So if that's what you're looking for, that is an option. But the other announcement that I wanted to make is we have actually begun a large partnership with Flowers Bakery on the bread side. We will probably release some of that, even if you weren't at the Expo, just so people can get a sense of what that is. But today we're actually taking 72 bread listings live, and there's a lot more to come. So hundreds of listings are coming live across the country. So if you are interested in that space or have questions, we've got listings just about everywhere in the country. So that is an opportunity for those of you who are either already in the FedEx space, and like Amy's talking about, trying to take that knowledge and apply it to a new industry and add it on as a part of your existing business, or maybe you're still a new investor and haven't decided where you want to enter the logistics space, and bread might be the right one for you. So if you have questions on that, we've probably got answers, and we've got a ton of prospectuses that are just getting uploaded as I speak onto our site. So those are across the country. Now, for Q&A, if anyone has questions, feel free to ask them. We can just generally, I see this question here that's coming in, Amy. How have you felt your margins kind of move as you got into the express space? I know there were probably some challenges when you first started, but how long about did it take until you started to stabilize and kind of reach a new normal?
So I would say, so FedEx does the SSSC, or kind of the offset money, which is kind of like very similar to the ramp up money that we get at peak. That money, it was a little bit questionable at first because we had no idea. And you'll know from the first thing that we said in our express presentation was we asked all the wrong questions, right? We went into this at a very blanketed, how many stops, when are the pickups? We didn't ask anything about call-ins. We didn't ask anything about any of these other things. So, our knowledge was we have to add 4 more drivers, and that's going to cost this, and you've only given us X, and we're going to be upside down. Where when we finally settled in and figured out you're giving us X, how do we back into that and manage financially into what you've given us? We did more of an fully integrated overlap model where our regular drivers were doing a small piece of express. And then we were able to recognize, once we changed that thought process, right? Once we started asking the right questions and running the business the way we thought we needed to run it from a safety and service perspective, the margins actually increased quite a bit. Not huge, but it covered our costs, and the margins that we were seeing prior to peak or prior to express integration had increased about 2% more, which was huge for us because it was taking quite a bit. Our managers, that was another big chunk that we talked about, is that the BC role changes quite a bit when Express rolls out. And what did that look like? It's hard when Dave and I talk about margins because we are a sum of all parts kind of company, being that, we don't take, even our paychecks come from a little piece of everything. So it's different in a one-on-one model where you have to pay a BC and you have to take an AO, and maybe you're even paying a loan for those routes. The model's definitely different. But I think by really crunching your numbers, understanding how to run Express, understanding how to meet these time requirements and what you're up against. And then again, we had that SSSC in the beginning. And then once we settled into that integration model and we went to stand up, we had all the data. We sent pages and pages, RFI, like almost college papers on why we needed the money and what we needed the money for. We gave them a very exact number. And they met us exactly where we were, actually a little bit more. So it was really nice. And now that the volume has increased a little bit on just the e-com side in that area, we're really on the upside of profitability.
Perfect. Yeah. Now, I don't know, have they described anything or talked at all about what they're expecting in terms of express volume at peak season? I know you ran a peak last year, but what are they saying now?
Yeah, so you can talk to that. They really haven't. They gave us some peak numbers, but they were just kind of general numbers. They really didn't talk about Express yet. So I think the general numbers were overshot in our historicals and forecasting. They were really inflated. So I don't know if those, if they thought maybe those included Express, but just didn't know. So we kind of told them when you get closer, with a little bit better numbers, because we always do that. We hear their numbers, they wanted, we have 15 resources at peak last year. They wanted 21. I'm like, not doing it. But they also want us to make sure we have enough people for flex. So, my big recommendation to anybody is to make sure your contract is secure, make sure you have enough people to run your contract. And if you can afford to hire more people and do flex and do contingency and help your neighbor, better for you. It's helped us in the past. But if you can't afford to hire those people, make sure that you have an honest conversation with your terminal and let them know what you can do and why you think it's that. But to really share your own numbers, the forecasts were significantly off at this early stage, but I kind of expect them to be. We haven't even gotten fall renegotiations from FedEx sales contract re-ups, from a sales standpoint. So as Chewy and some of the contracts that they deal with nationally, those usually come August, September, October. So the volume that they're giving us in July is just,
Yeah.
fuzzy math.
Yeah.
Fuzzy math, as I like to call it. So just keep an eye on your numbers and keep dialed in. But we did a session the other day about peak hiring. We are in the middle of peak hiring. That now that we're through August, we are definitely pushing hard to get our people in and safe. Contingency and flex is a great way to put your people in a place while you can afford to do that.
Yeah. Okay. The next question, I'll answer it first, and I'll let you guys chime in too. So what are some of the most important metrics to look for when they're buying a FedEx route? So what should they be evaluating or thinking about when they're buying a route? There's a lot of things to think about. One is obviously you want to know what the margin is and understand if it's a fair price for the business. So you just want to make sure that it's a realistic margin and not something that's highly overstated or missing some expenses, that that it's actually the number that you're going to work with and that you're paying a fair multiple on that. And we can talk through all that if you have more questions there. Operationally, the good thing is when you're coming in fresh, most operational safety metrics, they will mostly reset and you'll start with a clean slate. But it's really important that you know the history, because you are still picking up those drivers and that culture. And so you want to know what you're walking into so that if there are problems, you're there to correct it. So things like the safety tier, tier 1 through 5, like what is the current safety standing? You'll want to know the metal status, and you'll want to know the focus areas as a part of that metal status to know where they're struggling. Again, remember, if they're not gold, it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. Silver's perfectly fine, but you still just want to be aware of the areas that are potential challenges. And those are some of there's a CSP index of some of the key indicators that FedEx tracks in a few different areas that we always walk through all of those with anyone who's buying one of these listings, so that you'll know exactly what the history is. Like I said, you start fresh, but you want to know things like, have there been a bunch of drivers that have been disqualified? Are there a ton of different accidents that I've seen? With accidents, there's also Schedule L, which again resets, but it shows how many accidents they've had over a period of time, and you'll want to know, are those problems that have been corrected, or is it still kind of a culture where there's a bunch of safety incidents? So those are some of the things to think about when you're looking at this from an operational perspective. But the main thing we dig into from evaluation and kind of top line there is we look and make sure that you're paying the right price for a business. And then I'd say the last thing is we'll evaluate the fleet and kind of help you think through, if it's a good fleet, what kind of CapEx changes do you have to think about in the future, and how's that going to impact you over the next 5 years, not just today.
Yeah, I think I was just going to say Dave was probably going to jump in and say fleet, so that you can really get an eye on not just what it is today, but if you're 2 years into a 4-year fleet, what that's going to look like for you in a couple of years. So really to forecast, especially if you're purchasing and your purchase contract is maybe 4 or 5 years out, you're still going to have that purchase contract, and you're going to maybe be looking at a little bit more maintenance, even though your trucks are going to start to be paid off, and what maybe that fleet strategy looks like even when you're buying, right? So look a couple years down the road and see what that replacement strategy needs to look like, so that you're not caught off guard and say, oh my gosh, I'm 2 years in and now I have to buy all new trucks. And then the other piece is benefits. I would say from my standpoint, people ask me all the time, what is your percentage of payroll? Or what's your percentage of overhead with your human capital? And I always ask them, well, how do you want to, what's the question that you're actually asking me? Because if you ask me, I'm going to say 52%, and you're going to say, whoa, that's way too much. But that's fully loaded, right?
Yeah.
That's workers' comp, that's everything, all my benefits, my 401k, all the things that Slicker does as a culture, which is obviously a little bit more. So if somebody says that they're at 46, but it's just gross payroll, really find out what that looks like, because if you decide 46% is what you can afford, and then all of a sudden your employees are really used to having benefits and having all those things, but you didn't have that built in, or you didn't understand that that was going to come off of your net margin, that can be a struggle point for you. So I think really understanding, asking those questions, outside of EBITDA, kind of what are all those things that are going to affect your employees, I think is a good piece, a good, metric to ask.
Yeah.
I think when they go into buying a route too, or buying routes, to know what they're buying, know if it's a discounted rate, you might not be buying a strong business, where something that costs a little bit more is more seamless and maybe maybe could be a little bit more hands off than something that's struggling that you get a good deal on.
Yep. Just like think about it like a house flip, right? So if you buy a contract and you buy a house and it's a super good deal, you're probably going to have to put a little bit of work into it, right? So there's going to be some learning curves and some struggle. If you buy a beautiful house and you're ready to rent it, and it needs very little work, you're probably going to pay a little bit more for it. So I think, just understanding those things, Josh, I think you hit all of the, high level contract valuation things, but I think, the future of your truck. So just look through the fleet a little bit further. And then especially if you're going to refinance those trucks to offset the purchase price, kind of look at where you're going to be in a couple of years with maintenance and or payments, and then look at the full piece, outside of EBITDA when it comes to your people, and the things that maybe aren't, 100%, calculated in that metrics.
Yeah. And if you're evaluating one of these businesses, if you're trying to get in for the first time, we have a bunch of different ways that we can help you figure out what the right price you should pay for a business and help you understand that roadmap for the future to know, okay, here's what it costs today. Here are some potential red flags, or at least some areas of improvement in the business that, when I'm thinking about how do I run better in the future, here are the call outs. We can do all of that for you, either on a one-off basis or as more of a partnership through our white glove consulting. So if you have questions on any of that, you're always free to reach out to our team. info@routeconsultant.com is the easiest. Next one here. How does FedEx react if a vehicle goes out of service and keeps you from fulfilling deliveries for a few days? What's the solution?
Get a rental truck. They do not worry about your personal business problems, and rightfully so. It's our obligation. That's why we're in the business. If I have a truck that gets deadlined, we either have to go get tires on it, if that's the issue, or if a light's out, we have to get it fixed, bring in our mobile mechanics to fix the problem, or we have to go pay astronomical prices and rent a truck for the day, which you pay those prices a couple times, you'll be more motivated to have your trucks up and going.
Or have spares, whatever it is. Yeah.
But I think that's fair. Again, Spencer really hit it on the head in his first, introductory meeting. And he was like, listen, like, they're not your friend, they're not your partner, they're your customer. And it is our obligation to make sure that we have fully DOT approved and logoed and ready to go trucks. And they pay us for those, whether we think it's the right amount or not. They do pay us to have those vans available to service their customers. So, if your truck goes out of service, you have to mark it out of service so that you don't get dinged on your lytic score and your KPIs, or your KIs, but you also have to then service the boxes, right? So to Dave's point, whether you delay dispatch a little bit and get it fixed, if it's a low hanging, repair, or if you have to, rent, or if you have a spare, it's your obligation to service that contract.
Yeah. And the most important answer you hear there is no world where FedEx lets it slide that you just have packages sitting for a couple of days. It is on you to find a solution.
And they're not going to look the other way on maintenance either. I mean, we have contracts where it's not as strict as others. We talk about terminal interpretation at probably all 4 of our sessions, and how certain contracts and terminal managers manage. But at the end of the day, that safety score on that DOT number, which does not belong to us, which does cost a ton if you have to have your own. So that's a huge benefit of dealing with FedEx Ground and FedEx Express, is it's their DOT. But if you go out and you just say, screw it, I'm going to run the truck anyway, it's a bigger issue there too. So running out of service, getting a rental for the short term and getting it fixed is the best thing that you can do for the relationship with your customer.
Perfect. Well, I am not seeing any more questions come in, so I think, we're right at the end of the time anyway. So, Dave, Amy, thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you so much for the expo this weekend. It was a ton of fun, and I'm very happy to hear you guys are taking some time because it was a long weekend. So you guys,
Little bit. There's a little bit of work.
perfect. Well, thank you guys again, and we will see you all on our next webinar, and hopefully you guys have a lot of fun the next couple days.
Awesome.
Thanks. See
Thanks,
ya.
guys. Bye-bye.